Hi everyone, my name is Zach, and in this video we turn this towel into an awesome sculpting brush. What we basically have to do is just take the towel and throw it onto our computer screen. I don't want a cloth simulation, I want a brush. Damn tools, didn't work at all. Okay, just kidding. We will use a technique called photogrammetry, which I guess most of you have heard of. You take a bunch of photos of an object, then put it into a photogrammetry software, and this software will generate a 3D model out of this. This 3D model we import into Blender, and there we will generate our sculpting brush. Sounds complicated, but it's definitely not. So very important, at the end of the video I have a small community project which is super useful and would be super great if you participate in this project. So if you want to learn more about this, stick to the end of this video. And by the way, since we are talking about brushes here, if you want to learn all the shortcuts for Blender's sculpting brushes, download my free Blender sculpting cheat sheet, link in the description. And if you want to learn how to use all the brushes in Blender, definitely check out my mastering sculpting workshop, link in the video description. So before we get started, one last note. While I was creating this video here, I was scrolling through Blender Nation and I saw that John Mervyn just did a pretty similar tutorial like I did, and except the photogrammetry part, he basically shows the same method I just wanted to show you. But in the comments of his video, there was a comment by Zach Hickson, which makes awesome tutorials for Blender animation nodes, so definitely check out his channel as well. And he was mentioned that you can also use the camera depth information in the materials. I remember that I tried this out a while back, but I had some problems back then. But I just give it another go and it works pretty good, and it's even more easy to use than the other method I just wanted to show you. So that means in this video I will show you the camera depth method I just learned from Zach Hickson, basically because he shared a screenshot. So kudos to Zach for sharing this information, and kudos to John Mervyn for his great tutorial, and he also shares a bunch of free sculpting brushes, so definitely check out his video. Alright, without further words, let's get started.
So first of all, what do we need? We need the subject we want to scan, in this case a towel. Then we need a device that makes photos, just take your smartphone. Then we need a photogrammetry software. In this case here I will use Agisoft PhotoScan or Agisoft, I don't know how to pronounce this. It's a paid software, but they are offering a full 30-day trial. That means you get 30 days to test this out with all the features. And the standard license, which is more than enough, it's relatively cheap. So for $179 you get a pretty good software. If you don't have any money to spend, I recommend to check out Gleb Alexandrov's video about a completely free photo scanning workflow with the tools Visual SFM and MeshLab. Also, since we are just scratching the surface of photogrammetry here, I recommend to watch the 4-part photo scanning tutorial by Classy Dogs Film. Definitely recommend it. Yeah, and besides Agisoft, we need Blender, in this case Blender 2.79. So before we get over to shoot the photos from the towel, we need to prepare the towel because we want these little nice folds here. But there we have to take care about a specific thing, because let's imagine this here is our towel. So it has this big fold in the center here. But if we take a look at this area here, then it would look like this. And for 3D scanning, this is definitely not a problem. If we take enough photos, then we also can scan this area here. But later on, if we convert this to a brush, then we only can see the geometry which is visible from above. So if we take a look at this and we would take a look from above here, then we can only see this area and this area here. And for the brush itself, this would mean that this whole area is just a very sharp line, as you can see here. And this doesn't look good if we use it for sculpting. So that means if this is our towel again, we need to push these areas here a little bit away from each other so that we have more like folds which are in this direction, so that from above we can see everything here. So now I arrange the folds here so that they are beautiful. And now we are getting over to shoot the photos. And this is pretty simple. So if this is our towel with a lot of cool folds, then just go relatively close to the towel and then shoot photos just in a row from top of the towel, like this here, in this direction, many photos. So just take care that the photos are overlapping a little bit. And if we are shooting this relatively flat surface, we don't need to shoot photos from other angles. It's not necessary at all. But certainly if you're shooting a real 3D object like this wonderful bottle here, then you have to make photos in different rows around the subject so that you cover everything. But take care, shooting a glass bottle will not work, so it has to be a solid surface with no transparency and, in best case, no glossiness on this. Because this can cause trouble for the photogrammetry software, because for every angle the light and surface is changing a bit through the reflections and so on. But this towel is not really reflective, so it works pretty well. Alright, now let's take a look how this works in Agisoft PhotoScan. So as you can see, I put my images into 2 folders because I shooted 2 sets. The first set is just 1 row of images as shown in the video, and the second set is just the whole thing from a bit further away. So this I just did because I want to show you one specific feature I did not see in many other tutorials. And I find it very important, especially if you want to make a 3D scan of a complex object, or imagine you put an object on your table, shoot the photos, and then reverse the object and shoot photos from the button of the object. If you then just throw all the photos into Agisoft PhotoScan, you won't get a proper model, because there's one step in between you have to do in order to merge different sets together. And just for this reason, I took 2 sets, but if you shoot a towel like this, only the 1 set is necessary. Alright, now here we are in Agisoft PhotoScan. And first of all, here on the left side, workspace, let's click on this symbol here to add a chunk. Click on this chunk and then add photos. Navigate to your folders, go to set 1, press Ctrl A to select everything, and click on Open. Now it will import all the images, as you can see. Now for the showcase, I just create another chunk, select this, add photos, and here I add the set 2. So imagine you have now created many different chunks. It can be more than 2. Then we have to merge those 2 chunks together. For this, we click on Workflow, Merge Chunks, select both, click on OK, and then we have a new merged chunk down here which contains all the images. So this here is selected, double click on that, and now let's go to Workflow, Align Photos. And since we are just using the 3D model for the brush, we don't need that high resolution. So I set this to medium and the rest I leave as it is, and then I hit OK. So since we are just using medium, this doesn't take that long, but if you're generating very high quality models, this can take quite some time, from hours to maybe days. So let's wait until this is done. So this now took about 1 or 2 minutes, not that long. Now we have a low-res point cloud. If you want to see how the photos here are aligning, just click the camera button, and then you can see these are the 2 rows I shot. This was the 1 row, and then I had the 2nd row above here. So, and as you can see with the merged chunks, this worked pretty well. So as next step, we have to generate a dense point cloud. So these are just a few points, and now we have to go to Workflow and click on Build Dense Cloud. And in this case, we can also use medium or high. In this case, I just take medium and then click OK. And this again will take just a few minutes, but if you go with ultra high, this can take quite some time. So building the high dense point cloud took about 10 minutes. If you want to see it, just click on this symbol up here. And this already looks like a 3D object, but if we zoom in closely, it's still a point cloud, as you can see. But now we have the towel already somehow in 3D space. But now we need to generate the actual 3D geometry out of this. But as you can see, with just a few photos, no proper lighting and so on, it works really, really well. So last thing we have to do is click on Workflow, Build Mesh, And also here we just use medium. Source data is dense cloud, and the rest leave it as it is and click OK. So this was pretty fast, I don't know, like 2 or 3 minutes. And now let's click on this here. And as you can see, now we have a real 3D mesh. It also calculated the vertex color, so it colored all the vertices, as you can see, so this is not a texture. And if you now want to generate the texture, you have to click on workflow again and build texture and basically leave everything as it is and press OK. But since we are just using the 3D info here, we don't need that. So as you can see, the 3D scanning workflow here is super simple. Basically, you just have to import the chunks, merge them if needed, and then just go to workflow and then these 4 steps: align photos, build dense cloud, build mesh, and if you need it, build the texture. That's all. So save your file, and then we need to export the 3D model. Just go to File, Export, Export Model, call it whatever you like. It will be a OBJ file. Save. So we don't need vertex colors or anything like that. Here you can also choose if you want to export the textures if you have generated them, but we don't need all that. Press OK and that's it. Alright, now let's take a look into Blender. Let's delete the default cube, the lamp. We just need the camera. But first of all, let's import our 3D model. Go to File, Import, Wavefront OBJ. Navigate to the folder where you just saved your OBJ file and open this. So now you can see the position and rotation is wrong. Let's go to numpad 3 from the side view and numpad 5 for the orthographic view. Press R for rotation, move it up a bit, and then press double R for 3-dimensional rotation and hold down Shift for slowing the rotation down so you can work more precisely. Then let's take a look from above, numpad 7. Maybe you can rotate this if you like. And then you can see our origin is up here somewhere. So let's select the object, go to Set Origin, Origin to Geometry. That means it jumps to somewhere in the center of the object. And now let's set this new rotation to be the new standard rotation of the object. Press Ctrl A, Apply Rotation. Now you can see the object is pretty rough from the surface, and also we have this floating geometry. Now let's quickly switch to edit mode, deselect everything and then press L with the mouse over the main part of the object. Then you can see everything will be selected except everything that's not connected to this. Then we press Ctrl I, X and delete the vertices. We're just doing this because it can be that maybe somewhere here in the center we have this floating geometry, and this later on can cause some troubles for our brush. So it is always good to clean this up a bit. Now let's enable smooth shading. You can see we have this flat shading. We can see every triangle here. So let's hit smooth. But now we have these small artifacts here on the surface. And to eliminate them, we have to go to the modifiers, add modifier, and add this smooth modifier. So here let's set the factor to 1 and let's repeat this a few times to smooth the surface a bit. We don't have to care about the edges because later on we don't see them in the camera perspective. We only care about the main geometry here in the center. Let's apply the smooth modifier, and we can see we still have a few bumps here and there. So let's switch over to sculpt mode and hold down Shift for enabling the smooth brush, or just pick the smooth brush up here and then just smooth the areas where you think are still too rough. So I increase this a bit and smooth the whole thing here just a bit because we don't need that much details here. Now let's adjust the camera. So first of all, let's select the camera, press Alt R for resetting the rotation and Alt G for resetting the position. Then press N and set the position for the Z axis to 1. As you can see, it's now 1 Blender unit above the red line, basically. Then we want to have a square format for our brush. So let's go to the render settings, dimensions, and set the resolution to 1024 by 1024 and 100%. Now with the camera selected, let's go over to the camera settings, and here we switch from perspective mode to orthographic. Perspective means we have this perspective distortion in our scene, and objects which are further away will be smaller and so on. And if we are now switching to orthographic, we have this more 2D view. That means every object has the original size no matter how far it is away. And you can see we don't have this perspective distortion here. And this is pretty nice if we want to align our 3D scanned object here. So let's unhide this. And this is now how this looks like. And we can move this around, rotate this and so on. And here we have a nice view on what's inside the brush later on. But now we need to adjust this a bit so we have our actual brush later on. So we are basically generating a depth map or a displacement map. That means a black and white image with the height information. That means everything which is high will be whiter or brighter, and everything which is pretty low on the ground will be black. So later on, that means basically if we are sculpting, we get these nice folds we have here. Now let's add a material to the object. Go to Material. Delete this generated material which was created for the scanned object. Create a new one. Call it whatever you like. In my case, I call it camera depth. And we switch the diffuse shader to be an emission shader. That means a glowing object. That means all the light sources in our scene will not affect this object. It's now basically shadeless. So we have the true black and white colors later on. But now this is just white and we need some more info here. So let's split our view. Add the node editor, and this is our material. Let's add now the camera depth information. Hit Shift A, input camera data, and connect the view Z depths to the color input of the emission node. Now let's also split the 3D view, and for one view let's hit Shift Z to render this out. And as you can see, when I'm now changing the camera position, we have this black and white gradient, and this basically defines the camera depth. That means everything which is further away from the camera will be brighter and everything which is closer to the camera will be darker. So now let's press numpad 0 to take a look from the render camera position. And if I'm now moving this object around, you can see how this is changing. But now we have a small problem because later on for our displacement map, everything which is white will be pulled out and everything which is black will stay as it is. And right now all the folds are black. That means we just would pull out everything else. So we have to invert this color. So let's add a color invert node here in between. And now as you can see, it will be inverted. And now we are nearly there. You can see if I'm moving this around, we have a nice depth map. So when it comes to image manipulation, there's always one problem, and these are the brightness values, because every screen looks different and you have to use a histogram to get the right values and so on. And in order to change this right here, we could, for example, just add our RGB curves and move them around to have different results. But it's always a lot of guessing involved, and if I render this out, for example, and press T, we have some nice histogram over here to check this, or by pressing left click on the image to see the values on the button of the UV image editor. But if you're not very familiar with all that, it can be quite tricky to get the right values. So I played around a lot and find a pretty cool and easy way to adjust this on a very visual way inside the 3D view. So let's press Ctrl X to delete this node up here, and let's move this down. If you remember, we put this camera position to be at 1 blender unit on the Z axis. And let's quickly add a plane, and on the plane I add this camera depth material. And this values here from the 0 axis to 1 equals the color values from 0 to 1. That means 0 is completely black and 1 would be completely white. So for example, if I'm moving this up, you can see it will be brighter each step. And now we are at location 0.7, and if I render this out quickly, and left click up here, you can see down below the RG and B values are all 0.7. That means this is the grayscale value from 0 to 1. So if we are knowing that, we can just scale our folds here in a way that it basically covers this area here. So the closer this is to the camera, the brighter it will be. So the highest point of our object should be pretty close to the camera, and the lowest point should be pretty close to the red or green line here, depending on what perspective you're looking at this. Now let's check this from the camera perspective. Now you can see we have a small problem because at some point it starts clipping. That means it's cutting away the stuff which is close to the camera. But we can adjust this a bit. So let's select the camera. And over here we can see clipping starts at 0.1. That means everything which is above this line here will be cut off. But we can reduce this to 0.001. That means we can go at least to 0.99 in the Z direction. So we have pretty high white values. So anyway, we don't want to have 100% white here, just something around 0.8 or 0.9. So we have nice bright values. So now we can simply adjust this by scaling the object and moving this up and down. So because we want the folds, the big folds, to be pretty white, and everything which is close to flat should be dark gray. We should avoid this here, that we have this hard edges on the black areas, because this we will also see while sculpting. So let's move this up so that we just have this dark gray areas. And if we have some blacks down here and everything else is gray, let's rotate the object a bit just to adjust this a bit. And we still maybe can scale this a little bit bigger so that we have here brighter white values. Now we can see we just have this small section of our whole folds here, but that's no problem. Let's select the camera, and now we simply increase the orthographic scale, and we are then zooming out basically. You can also move the object around if you like to get exactly the folds in the scene which you like. And still we have to rotate this a bit, something like this. So let's check, nothing is above 1. And this looks nice to me. And now we basically just have to press F12 to render this out. If this is rendering too long, you can also reduce the render samples here. I think here we don't need that much samples. This here already could work as brush, but if we want to add this nice vignette effect here, that we have this circular shaped brush with all the edges in black, let's switch to the compositing nodes, use nodes, backdrop, shift space. Now let's add a ellipse mask, shift A, mate, ellipse mask, shift control left click on here, then we have this viewer node and we can see what this node actually does. Let's increase the height and the width to 0.5. Now we have this circle here. And now let's add a filter blur node, put it behind this. And now increase the X and Y values and connect this with composite. And now we have to mix this with our brush. So let's go to color, mix node, and connect this with the viewer node. Then let's connect the image to the second image input. And now let's set the blend type to multiply. Yeah, now you can see we have this nice brush with dark edges here. So now you can press F12 and then it will create your brush. Now to save this brush, hit F3 in the image editor. Down here we choose PNG. The color depth we set to 16, so more information are stored in the image. And we just need the black and white channel. No color information are stored here. And now let's call this Folds Brush 1 and save this in our brush folder, for example. So and before we take a look on how we can use this for sculpting actually, let's hide this here. And we now can use basically any object. We can scan whatever you like. We can also just add 3D objects here, like this one here, add the material. And now let's set the background basically to black. Now let's scale this up. Maybe change the orthographic scale a bit. And then render this out as brush. And here, if you don't want to have the vignette effect, you simply can click down here and just use the render layer instead of the composite. Then you just have the original render and then hit F3 and save this as Taurus brush or whatever you like. So you can also go really crazy with this and maybe create a chain armor. You can also create repeatable textures here, or you can even add Suzanne here as sculpting brush. Zoom in a bit. So So now you can really go crazy with this. You can create your own objects in sculpt mode or in edit mode or whatever you like. You can scan all kinds of surfaces like folds or zipper, ornaments or cracks, rocks, different surfaces, whatever you like, and then easily just put it in here and convert this into a sculpting brush. And since we now have prepared this blend file, we can save this separately and then just easily add the object, make some small adjustments and render this out as brush. If you don't want to create this blend file on your own, you just can download mine in the video description below. So now let's take a look how we can use the brushes in Blender Sculpt mode. So let's just add an icosphere here and increase the resolution a bit. And now let's switch to sculpt mode. Now let's disable symmetry and enable Topo, constant detail, check the resolution and increase this a bit to 60 maybe. And now let's just import the texture and see how it looks like. So we go to texture, new, call this folds, go to the texture settings over here, click on open, navigate to your brush folder and then open the image. So now if I click here, you can see something is happening. We can also increase the brush size and this is working pretty good, but the resolution is way too low. But now we have a small problem. If I just increase the resolution here from dynamic topology, at some point it starts lagging a lot and this is not really fun for sculpting. So what we have to do is we have to pre-subdivide our model and then turn off Topo in order to make this work. And we can simply use the detail flood fill option here. Then the whole mesh will be filled with this resolution we have just set up here. Now let's hit the button. This will take a short while, but after that we can sculpt very fluently on a high resolution with textures. Alright, now it's filled. You can see we have more vertices and tries here. Now let's disable Topo. And now let's see how this works. If I increase this and sculpt here, you can see it's running super fluent. So now let's adjust the settings here. First of all, under stroke, I want the anchored method. That means we can drag and drop our folds here on the surface. And you can see this already looks pretty good. What we now just have to do is just adjust the strengths a bit if we like, if they are too strong or too weak. And then we can easily create a lot of cool folds here. You can rotate them. This is maybe a bit too strong. And if you hold down Control, you can also invert them. And now if you are just combine them a bit, this looks pretty nice, huh? And now imagine you don't just have one folds brush, you have a lot of different folds brushes, and then you can easily add nice folds to clothing of characters, for example. So now let's also test our torus. Click on open here. Let's test our torus brush. And now you can see this is not the shape we just created because we have the curve settings here. And here we have this fall off to the side. So let's use this curve here, which basically uses the full range of our brush here. Whoa, super strong. Let's decrease the strengths here. Yeah, and in this way we can create our brushes. So now imagine you have some bowls or whatever and just quickly want to sculpt them here. This would be working perfectly fine.
Yeah guys, as you can see, it's pretty simple to create your own sculpting brushes in Blender. So now let's talk about what I mean with the community project I was talking about at the beginning of this video. So basically I thought creating your own sculpting brushes in Blender is relatively simple. So why not ask the community to put together a big package of a lot of different sculpting brushes we all can use for free. So for one person this is probably a big task, but if we do it together, we can have a lot of sculpting brushes in no time. So I give you all 1 week, 7 days. And in this 1 week, let's put together at least 100 useful sculpting brushes. I will also contribute some brushes, but it would be awesome if you would contribute as well. That means create 1 or more sculpting brushes as shown in this video. Upload this to Dropbox, Google Drive, WeTransfer or anything like that, and then go to my website and send me the link through the contact form. If you like, you can also send me your name and your website, portfolio or whatever, since I will also put together a list from all the people that are contributing to this pack. But you have to consider, if you send me your texture, I will use this and I will put it under the license CC0. That means everyone can use it for whatever he or she likes. And it's super important that you don't send me any brushes you have downloaded somewhere on the internet, so it has to be our original creation by yourself. So, and then in 7 days I will pack together all the brushes I received, put it in the video description under this video, and then everyone can download this for free. So, sounds cool? If yes, definitely contribute to this, and I would love to see 100 sculpting brushes. Also, I will do a quality control. That means it could be that I don't pack all the brushes into this pack, since I want to just have useful brushes from things you need a lot while sculpting, and also the quality should be good enough. Yeah guys, thanks a lot for watching. And as mentioned, if you want to have my Blender sculpting cheat sheet for free, download this on my website, link in the video description. And if you want to learn and master sculpting in Blender, definitely check out my Mastering Sculpting workshop. Thanks a lot for watching guys, see you in the next video. Goodbye!
Yeah guys, you know what to do. Like this video if you like, share it with your friends, and subscribe.